inauguration of the September edition of India's first dual certificate program that WhizHack has brought together with IIT Jodhpur and Israeli partners. And it's a matter of great pride that we are able to do that in spite of the huge downturn. When we started launching this program about 6 months back, the first program was launched in June. This was the first attempt to blend the best of India, the scientific depth of top Indian faculties, and bring in global pedagogies from Israel, so that students are able to learn from the best in all different spheres. The core point that all of you have to remember in this field is that post-COVID, there is huge demand in two people who are trying to provide immunity. The first, as we all know, is people who are trying to provide immunity against virus, which is the COVID virus, and the second, again, people who are trying to provide immunity against cybercrime. And these two are the fastest growing careers across. And the number one reason for cyber defense globally is that the key issue about risk. Today, the risk is simply non-sustainable. No corporate, whether it's large, small, SME, can afford to ignore a cybersecurity strategy. And across the world, across India, we are facing a 5.2 trillion attacks that has happened over the past 5 years. It is unprecedented in scale, simply because whole businesses, whole life system has gone digital, and that is the reason it is impacting each and everyone around us. So if you look at data, what is interesting to know, of all the fastest growing career option, which includes AI, data science, cybersecurity is the fastest growing job career across the world. And it is also the job, it is also the career track which sees maximum openings. 83% of the corporates are not able to find the right employees. Business Standard has done an article wherein cyber defense has been rated as the #1 recession-proof career option. Now, we don't want to do anything tactical, which is why WhizHack, we are a vertically integrated cybersecurity organization. We are building products, we are providing managed security services, and training is an integral part in this, because we are seeing training, we are not providing training for training's sake, but we are seeing training as an ecosystem play, wherein people who are trained here are not coming here only for getting a certification at the end of the day. They will solve a real complex problem. And to solve a complex problem, you need to understand what is happening in managed security services, what is happening in cybersecurity products. Now, that is where WhizHack comes in. Now, we have as our knowledge partner IIT Jodhpur, a premier institution whose introduction is not required, but the center of excellence that we are building with cybersecurity also is just not a plain vanilla cybersecurity thing, where we are developing labs for solving next generation problems. For example, we would the person who would be introducing you, launching this cohort, Professor Chaudhary, the director of IIT Jodhpur, he has a vision, and he shared it with us that the future would be about cyber, providing defense in cyber physical system. And those are really core infrastructure industries where majority of complex cybersecurity challenges and attacks would happen. And this is where you need a lot of cross-disciplinary people. Now, the key thing about our previous cohort and the current cohort is the fact that a lot of people are engineers. Some of them are computer engineers, but a lot of you are from mechanical engineers, electrical engineers. We also have in the current cohort, which has 40 students, people from humanities background, commerce background. There are auditors here, there are lawyers here, and this leads to a very, very vibrant and diverse audience. It is only the true value will come in colliding viewpoints. The true science can evolve only through interconnection of these value sets and knowledge sets from a diverse population. And this is the true value of this cohort that we are running with IIT Jodhpur and Cybint, our Israeli partners. I will bring in Professor Shantanu Chaudhary at this point of time. A brief background about Professor Shantanu Chaudhary. He was Schlumberger Professor of Electrical Engineering in IIT Delhi. And very interestingly, he was a gold medalist in his student days. He studied in IIT Kharagpur, did his BTech and PhD from there, and a very, very well-known and regarded figure in computer science circles in India. All his life he has been a teacher and trainer. We are deeply privileged to have you, sir. Professor Shantanu Chaudhary, Director of IIT Jodhpur. We expect and hope and wish that his wisdom prevails on us. Significant part, a lot of things that we are trying to include in this course, a lot of these ideas come from him. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time. And we would request you to launch this program that has been launched with IIT Jodhpur DISC with you, with your support.
Thank you, Kaushik. And let me first, am I audible? My voice is reaching to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so let me first welcome all the participants of the second course on cybersecurity, which is being offered through DISC. I think this is a great occasion, and where we have the second batch, and with this kind of a diversity in the student population, we are running such a program. See, one thing is very important. Why the diversity? Diversity enriches an academic ecosystem. People coming from different backgrounds, they look at the problem from their own perspective. And each of those perspectives have a refreshing originality, because you are not always coming from a kind of a built-up, structured way of looking at things, because structured way of looking at things cannot generate a disruptive variation. The people who have looked at the things with a kind of a technical background in a structured way, and when they actually interact with someone, maybe an engineer interacting with somebody coming from purely a kind of humanities background, then the perspectives completely changes. And when you are talking about cybersecurity, in fact, cybersecurity is critically linked with security of human beings, and you cannot ignore that fact. Security of the human being is not always a physical security. A very simple example is fiscal security. And if we are talking in terms of a fiscal security, then also a humanities person, maybe from a psychology background, can contribute in a big way to detect telltale sign of possible criminal who is trying to dupe you on the net. Now, this kind of a combination, that is someone coming from a pure humanities background who understands human mind professionally, with someone who understands technology, when they are in the same class and working together, maybe to create a system to prevent cybercrime, it can create wonders, because the psychological perspective of a criminal and the technical innovations that the criminal may do, both are actually symptoms and signs which enable you to develop technology to prevent it, develop processes to prevent it, not just a technology. I think this is what makes me excited after listening to what Kaushik talked about, the kind of composition in the class. So diversity, I think, is something great that you have in this group, and the diverse students with their different backgrounds, some of them with experience, some of them without experience, with absolutely fresh thinking, can bring in a new kind of a perspective to the study of cybersecurity and a professional growth of each one of you in the space of cybersecurity. See, I would like to touch upon briefly the whole concept of what we talked with Kaushik the other day, and what Kaushik was referring to, the story of setting up a lab at IIT Jodhpur. And that lab, I suggested that we should look at cyber physical security rather than cyber security. And because cyber physical security is much bigger umbrella today. If you look at security of a power grid, is something very, very important, for example. Because today, if there is a sabotage of the power grid and power goes off, and say you might have, some of you might have experienced in the past, the northern grid getting completely paralyzed because of uncontrolled frequency variation from some source. Now, there has been lots of sophisticated technologies which have been put in for kind of isolations of the grid, so that if there is a change in frequency, fall in frequency, and overload at one point, that will not impact the grid stability. Now, there can be specific attack on the grid by bypassing these protective measures. Because the moment I can attack the grid, I can completely paralyze the operation of a sector, paralyze operation of a city, paralyze operation of a region. Just consider a scenario with when we are talking about possible terrorist attacks. A terrorist target a city, let's say, and a physical attack to a city, and at the same time, basically a group of those people are doing a cyber crime to paralyze the power grid. The moment they can paralyze the power grid, then it will impact the communications. The moment there is an impact on communications, there can be various kinds of attacks which can be there on vital establishments, because the information will not go around. There would be, if it's a night attack, lights will not be there, as well as even the whole system will get paralyzed, because there is not really power to connect your communication system. So someone can plan the things in such a way that they can paralyze functioning, and that brings in may not be loss of life. When there is an attack, there is a loss of life. But such an attack, if I now just generate, say for example, when we are doing a cyber security, there can be worms and they can keep on generating packets. And by generating the packets, they can actually jam the network. Now, if such kind of packets are generated and that impacts a power regulation network, then there will be no power for hours altogether. And until unless you can catch, and you will be studying those techniques to stop those kind of random packet generation techniques, and how to capture and identify those attacks and stop it. But those service denial attacks in a various form, in transform form, can be applied on a communication network or a power network as well, and paralyze the economy at least for a time period. So these are all attacks. In fact, globally, what is being talked about today, majority of this kind of warfare is with non-state warriors and non-state attackers, non-state terrorists. And for them, if you see, cyber physical systems are basically open holes to infiltrate and create damages. Say, for example, say a dam, sluice gate of a dam. There's an automated control system. If I can compromise that automated control system, then I can have a water flown into the plains and just flooding people and creating a huge devastation in a country. And it is not that those things have not happened. People have done that, physically destroying the dams as a military strategy. But today, I need not physically destroy the dam. I just manipulate the control system. And many cases, these control systems, when it is connected for a hydroelectric power source, are also networked. The more our life is becoming networked, more it is becoming vulnerable to these kind of cyber attacks. And our life being networked means we are also networked. So cyber physical is a fundamental for all of us, and it can only ensure security of our property, security of our finances, security of our intellectual properties that we generate. Also, it would secure a country's production system, which has impact also on the economy. And therefore, you are in a very, very critical juncture when you are taking up this course. And that makes the whole program a very unique and very different way useful to you. Because try to understand, uh, I think today itself there is a newspaper report or which says that Nigeria is planning to come up with its own cryptocurrency, own currency. And if you you must have read that that Messi who has shifted to that football club in France, and he's taking money through cryptocurrency. Some of his income will be through cryptocurrency. Now try to understand that. Therefore, what is cryptocurrency, and what is currency really? See, when I use money, that money is guaranteed by, say, for example, if I have 100 rupees and I'm giving somebody 100 rupees, 1,000 rupees, or 2,000 rupees, the value of that currency is determined by what is the actual property deposited, maybe with Reserve Bank. Say, if you simply say that, if you take a very simple example, if you are giving somebody 2,000 rupees, a note, basically a currency of 2,000 note, 2,000 rupees, technically there is a resource or wealth valued 2,000 rupees in the central bank, which actually gives value to that paper. Fine. So I cannot just simply print a note and claim it's a money. Government can only print a note because the government can actually associate a value with a note. And when you say the government is printing note, more printing note and devaluing, because government has a finite resource, and when there are more notes getting printed, obviously that finite resource is getting distributed over those notes, okay, which are indicative of this currency, and effectively the value is increasing. And from a market perspective, there is more money in the market. So if there are more money in the market, this buying power is reducing. So since the buying power is reducing, the value is reducing. But here, what is very important, I think many of you know about it, and these economics, etc., you'd be clear. But you look at it in a completely from a different perspective. Who is giving value to it? It is the state. Now, if a stateless agency starts creating currency, and then how does it give value to that? Because they can have their own back-end resource, and then it's getting exchanged with others who have the similar currency. Then someone can create completely a parallel economy which can destroy a country. Now, how do you stop that parallel economy? First of all, is cryptography gets embedded into that currency, because there is something which is to be protected, that identity of the currency. If you break that, then identity is broken, and so you can modify and do whatever you want to. Second thing is, the transactions with that currency has to be also protected and secured. And if it is not secured, then just like any kind of your credit card like currency, like transactions, that can be actually manipulated, and security can be compromised. So the moment cryptocurrency is coming in, so there are different kinds of security risks which are coming up, which was not there earlier when we had a very traditional paper-based currency, or even before that when we had a barter system. That whole story was actually different. But when you are moving into an electronic money market, electronic currency, cryptocurrency and variants of those, then that whole financial world is changing. In fact, the kind of cybercrime we talk about, by manipulation of the accounts, taking away money, manipulating your credit card, you are actually false transactions of account. That is one class of crimes. But there is an emerging class of another set of crimes, which are now with actually this entire usage of cryptocurrency and a parallel economy being created with that cryptocurrency. So somebody who is coming from a finance background, and when he's doing this course, these issues are absolutely critical for him to understand, because tomorrow's finance will not work with a traditional paper currency. It will work with something else. And what does that mean? Say, for example, when Facebook wanted to introduce its own currency, it was felt and predicted that that currency will be much stronger than that of many countries in the world. And therefore, they could actually determine the economy. So the whole concept of statehood, economy, growth, resources, everything is under threat with the technology and the security issues coming in a multifarious way, touching your life. Therefore, if you cannot get into this space, if you are not trained in this space, the real challenges of life will actually defeat you. And this course, where you are getting the entire exposure to the principles, to the technologies, as well as what I feel the diversity of the student population creates a possibility of innovations. And that everything together, you will get a rounded education. And that rounded education, which gives basis of fundamentals, which provides you with hands-on experiences, and which also promotes towards innovation, is an ideal course to do. I hope you will get that experience of an ideal training through this program offered by DISC. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Really so profound points, actually. Food for thought. I mean, this is the start of a wave. This is going to impact, whether you want it or not, to millions and zillions of people. Clearly, the diversity of people in this group can unlock a lot of value. There's this interesting point about I think it was there was this study done on Steve Jobs, where he's considered as the ultimate left brain, right brain balance, because he was technically extremely adept, but he also had his passion in calligraphy and designing, etc. So we have some of the biggest exponents in cybersecurity today who are also coming from humanities, as Professor Shantanu mentioned, that this is gonna unlock a lot of value, because clearly this is, when you look at antagonist forces, there are not one or two people. We are not looking at low level cybercrime. When you talked about cyber physical systems, that is also, you look at the collaboration between different industries. A lot of you have joined with 10 years, 15 years of experience in this current cohort, from mechanical industries, electrical industries. Today, the only major science challenge they're dealing with is security, or cyber security. We have whole automobile industries where IoT in moving vehicles is a big thing now in the future. So everyone in some way or the other is getting impacted. And this is the start. It's always good to have a bigger picture, rather than just going from topic to topic. But you should know, I mean, the fascinating aspects that Professor Shantanu mentioned about cryptocurrency and setting up a parallel economy would all stand in good stead. There are a lot of you with finance background, as lawyers, and hope this whole group, the controlled entropy that we talked about, this will really be interested. Today learning is also shifting increasingly from a star system wherein there was only one expert, rest all were receiving. Today we are talking about meshed learning networks. We find it very fascinating in the first cohort that one student is putting up a problem before any of our internal experts are responding. Half the other people within the system are volunteering and resolving the questions. So it should turn out to be a roller coaster event. Always challenge us, keep challenging us, because at the end of the day, we are a hardcore cybersecurity organization. We would love to hear about large scale challenges that any of your organizations are facing. As we wait, let me just, I think it's time for our next guest. As he logs in, let me share my screen and share one slide about him. So, you know, uh, Israel and Cybint are other partner, a key element of this whole training ecosystem that is made available to you. They are all enmeshed. So Israel is a global cybersecurity, acknowledged as a global cybersecurity leader, right to the the startup system today. If you look at it, they corner majority of the private equity money that is there, particularly in cyber security. Uh, it is a country very similar to India, surrounded by a lot of hostile countries. So for them, defense is ingrained in their DNA. They have to constantly look behind their back. So their startup came out of extreme adversity and a scientific mindset. This is something very, very similar to India. They invested, but a lot of things where they went ahead was their investment into R&D, core research. They, in terms of education, they made cybersecurity mandatory at school level before even US or any other country thought of it. They introduced PhDs in cybersecurity before anyone else. And military, they have the famed 8200 unit, which is a startup incubator. They have a cyber security. As all of you may be aware, that Israel has military training, which is mandated, it's compulsory. But within them, they identify people who need to who are trained on cybersecurity as well. Roy Zur and Cybint essentially came out of that. And he was himself an expert trainer. And let's just wait for him. It's fascinating to hear his story and how. Hi, good evening, Roy. Great to have you again. We were just talking about you. So let me complete that slide which I had shared about you. So this was about Israel and Mr. Roy Zur. So happy to have you again here. So Roy Zur came out of this 8200 unit, and so he founded Cybint, and he actually had a challenging prospect of training hundreds and thousands of people who were trained in military, and they came from diverse field, and they didn't see it as a handicap. Some of their top experts within Cybint I know are people with psychology background, and this person said it's more important to know how the cyber criminal is thinking. And science can be taught, but it's important to know how the criminal is thinking. So people with absolutely diverse background, and they've decided that yeah, tools can be taught, theories can be taught. And that was a start of a fascinating journey. So he came from cyber intelligence, military intelligence. Today Hackayo is and Cybint have joined forces. They've created a larger organization called Thrive DX. We'll hear about all of these in an area of digital transformation. So over to you, Roy. Look forward to. So we have Roy, just for your knowledge, 39 students in the second cohort, very diverse background, a lot of them with industry experience, a lot of freshers, roughly 50% are people with experience, some with 10 to 12 years of experience as well. And then you have again an equal spread, almost 50-50, with people with tech backgrounds, engineering, BCAs, MCAs, etc. And then people who are from arts, humanities, general science, etc. So over to you, Roy.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here, and thanks for waiting. I know I was like 2 minutes late, so I appreciate you waiting for me. It's always a pleasure to launch a new cohort. And as you introduce myself, maybe I'll skip the introduction, but just as you mentioned, for the past, I would say almost 15, actually more than 15 years, I was involved in different aspects of cybersecurity and cyber intelligence training programs, from the Israeli military in the United States, then in Israel, back in Israel, including a combination of expertise from academia, industry, military, government. In a way, something that also represents what we are doing here right now with IITJ, WhizHack, people from different backgrounds, some with no background, some with more advanced background or diverse background. And it's really exciting to be here with you today and launch this this upcoming cohort. I want to share a few slides, kind of like talking about the problem that we are solving together and how you are going to be, we and you are going to be part of this solution globally. I'll share my screen, and you should be able to see my screen right now. If you cannot, please let me know. So in general, as you know, we are now joining forces, different groups of companies and experts around the world. We've been Cybint as a cyber education company, partnered with WhizHack and IITJ and other institutions in India and around the world. And just recently, we also partnered with another company called HackerU, and now rebranded into Thrive DX. The focus of DX is to represent the digital transformation, and Thrive is what we see our students and learners around the world. So as an organization, we have more than 10,000 students around the world, mostly in cybersecurity, but also in other fields of expertise like software development, UX UI, data science, and other emerging topics. And today we're going to focus about cybersecurity. And the fact that you're here, meaning that you already decided or made up your mind that cybersecurity is a field that you want to practice, or a field that you want to gain more expertise or more skills in this field. And I think it's the right choice. It's the right choice because as we see the world becoming more and more digital, and as I said, and we think about the context of this, right? This is what we are talking about, digital transformation. So when the world is becoming more and more digital, one of the key challenges that we are facing is how to keep these networks, access points, devices, data, databases, how to keep all of them safe. And this is a big challenge because every year the amount of data, globally, more or less double itself. And I mean, more than that, right? So we are talking about something that is very challenging, not just from, there are a lot of different challenges from cloud storage to other aspects, but one of the biggest challenges is cybersecurity. And when we look at the cybersecurity space and thinking about all the different aspects, of different types of attacks and amount of attacks and attack vectors and attack actors or threat actors, we understand that it's actually one of the biggest challenges we are facing globally. Because if we think about it also from a financial point of view, we understand that the economic value at risk, right, the damage, the cost of cyber crimes and cyber attacks is already in the trillions of dollars. So annual cost last year was exceeding the 700 billion US dollars, the estimation. And when we think about year after year, we actually see this increases in the scope, in the costs, in the effects. And this is a research, what you see here is a page from a research by Accenture that was released actually pre-COVID. So COVID not only accelerated this problem, but also made it much bigger when we think about the upcoming years, with workforce working online, with different, changes in infrastructure, with crime moving from the physical space to the online space. I mean, it happened before, but it's just the rapid change is happening faster, I'd say. And it's not just in the macro level, also in the micro level, like every company, every organization, are becoming more and more sensitive to targeted attacks. The cost per attack per company is becoming significantly bigger than in the past. If we just take one segment like, ransomware, and we compare trends in ransomware from 2018 or even from 2017, the famous WannaCry attack, the WannaCry attack that was really maybe the biggest ransomware attack globally, still the cost per victim, right, the cost per company or per ransom payment was not that significant. I mean, I think it was a few $100s per station. So a big company faced tens of thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars in a really rare case. Right now, we see that the average ransom payment of a company is about $250,000, almost 250,000 US dollars. So, and this is the average, right? So some companies are affected much more severely. So a lot of businesses are now dealing with cyber crimes and cyber attacks as something that is not just a nuisance or something that it's another risk for the organization. It can become their biggest risk, right? It can become something that will get them out of business in a way, and that's where we're coming to the discussion, because when we think about the different threat actors and threat vectors and attack vectors, and I'm skipping some slides here because I want to go straight to the point. The point is, although cybersecurity sounds like a technological challenge, and there are technological challenges, of course, in cybersecurity, and there's a lot of research in that aspect from different points of view, but the biggest problem, right, and the problem that we are tackling, and now that you are part of the solution, is actually the human problem. Also from the fact that end users, and lack of awareness is a big challenge that we are facing. But actually, in the context of what we're talking right now, I'd like to focus on two main elements.
Sorry, Roy. Ankit Kumar, can you please put yourself on mute?
The talent shortage and the skills gap, right? So there are kind of like two problems or two challenges that are coming from the same, from the same point, which is there aren't enough qualified people in the market, and the market and the skills are changing so rapidly, right? And in such an amazing pace that even if you had the skills X years ago, you may not have the most relevant skills right now. So as a solution, we need to work together. We, meaning companies like Cybint, like ThriveDX as a group, like IITJ and other institutions, like WhizHack and other industry partners. We need to collaborate together to bring the solutions to the market in order to create an accelerated process of taking people with no background in cybersecurity or with some background in cybersecurity and bring them to the level in which they can be relevant now to work in the cybersecurity space, whether as cybersecurity professionals or in other positions, not necessarily as cybersecurity professionals, but positions that require cybersecurity skills. And we see this with software developers that require, secure coding skills. We see that with compliance officers that need cybersecurity understanding to deal with risk, coming from cyber attacks. We see this with different executives that need to make decisions, or financial professionals that need to make decisions. So when we think about cybersecurity, it's not just to train the security professionals. We believe that the skills from cybersecurity are actually, a necessity for many different positions. And this is a problem that we need to solve. And actually, from the industry perspective, it's a problem. But from our perspective, including everyone in this call, it's also an opportunity. It's an opportunity because if we look at the Microsoft report from last year, in the midst of middle of COVID, first or second wave, Microsoft released a report that estimated that by 2025, which is the near future, right? 2025 is less than 4 years from now. By 2025, there will be almost 150 million new jobs. And I'm talking about digital job capacity, not even talking about other, I would say, less digital aspects. So this is an amazing number, because this number means, the essence of it, or the meaning of it, is that we need 149 million people to fill in these positions. It's more than triple the entire workforce that is working on that right now. Actually, it's 4 times plus what we need to generate by 2025. And in that context, it's so exciting to discuss this in the context of India and in the context of partnerships in India, because India has already became one of the leading, if not the leader, in IT services and software development services. Even my company is working with services and software development from India with dozens of people. And we are a fairly small company in comparison to the giants, around the world that have thousands or tens of thousands of people in India. So I also see this happening and going to happen in the cybersecurity space. That India is becoming and will become a hub for expertise, because India is in such an amazing position, globally, a combination of massive workforce, very talented people, very tech-oriented, a lot of tech orientation, strong language skills, the ability to learn to work in English. All of these together, combine them together with the opportunities in the market, actually put India in a really, really good place. And of course, right now, it's a really challenging situation right now globally with COVID and everything that's going on. And of course, India is suffering, and it's hard to see, sometimes the bright future, in some context. But the market and where the market is going is actually a really big opportunity for India to already becoming one of the leading economies in the world, and specifically also in the context of IT and cybersecurity solutions and services and skills. So in that context, what we do at Cybint, and now also as part of the bigger group of Thrive DX, is we develop e-learning, training, and simulation solutions. We do it, not just in cybersecurity, but in the context of what we're talking right now. We do it for reskilling the workforce and upskilling the industry, specifically in cybersecurity. And that's from offering, boot camps that are more affordable versus like super expensive boot camps in the United States, and offering degree software like lab environments, and offering also enterprise training. And in the context of what we're doing here at the Cybint Bootcamp, we developed with experts from the industry, from the academy, from other places, from the military, this accelerated program, right, for reskilling learners from basic. Some of you are not necessarily coming from basic, but the process is from basic to employed in cybersecurity in a few months. So in some places it's 3 to 6 months, in other places it's 9 months, depends on the structure of the program. And we do it by partnering, right? We do it by partnering with education institutions globally. We do it by partnering with education institutions globally, like we've been doing, like we are doing right now with IIT and WhizHack. So we actually have a network of today about 60 institutions globally, from leading institutions in the United States, Europe, India, Singapore, Australia, Japan, parts of Africa, etc., working together, separately, but working as part of a bigger network of global expertise. And what's interesting about this bootcamp is not only that it includes the relevant content, but also it includes the relevant practice environment. this education technology and what we call next generation learning experience in cybersecurity. So in that context, and maybe I'll stop sharing for a minute and and go back to our discussion here. I'll say that in that context, it's really exciting. I'm really excited being here with you today. First, it's not the first cohort. It's already the second cohort with IITJ, and we see that's already getting more traction, more interest, and more confidence of people in the program. I can tell you that the program is already running in many countries around the world with high level of success rates, including employment rates, including people acquiring the necessary skills. And this is exactly what we want to achieve. We want to build here together capacity that on the one hand will allow you to build a better career path for you, and will allow the industry to build a better workforce, a stronger workforce in the context of cybersecurity, because we know that this is a demand, there is a necessity, and it's also building the resilience of the market, in that way. And maybe just to summarize that point, or all the points together, eventually, beyond everything like the economic aspects of the cybersecurity and the opportunities, et cetera, there is also a purpose, behind it. There is also an impact, because going into the field of cybersecurity, whether you are doing that as a cybersecurity professional or doing it in other, fields of expertise that require cybersecurity skills, is also making a decision that you are one of the good guys, that you are actually, or good girls in that case, but you are one of the good people that decided that not only that you want to develop your career, but you also take a position in helping organizations, government agencies, corporations, other institutions to build their, strength and to build their resilience against cyber attacks. And I think that this is something really important for every one of us when we want to kind of like write our own story and have our own understanding of what do we want to achieve in our career. I think that other than, something that make a living, which is really important, also something that creates an impact. And I think that this is something that you can all be proud of, choosing this path, and I'm happy to be part of this solution as well. And I wanted to congratulate you, of course, of starting this this learning journey. I hope, I'm confident that this will be, an interesting, exciting, and successful journey. And I hope, you at the end of it, throughout of it, and at the end of it, you'll feel that you made the right choice for you. So I think that's about it. Kaushik, maybe you want to take it from here.
Always great points, Roy. Very interesting. The point that you mentioned about India, in 1999, there was this Y2K boom, which created these Indian IT powerhouses, service powerhouses, the Infosys, the TCS. That's the time the whole world came to know about the tech capabilities of Indians. We have demographic dividend. Indians are known as very few countries like Germans, Japanese, Israelis, obviously, but Germans, Japanese, they are aging. We have the world's youngest population, and maths is an integral part. It comes naturally to us, and unlike China, we also have English so it really it's fascinating when you talk about these opportunities. Clearly, someone will gain out of this huge spurt in demand that is coming up, and the cyber criminal is clearly borderless. He could be sitting in Russia or wherever, in North Korea. So essentially, the skills, the advantage with Cybint, what they're bringing to the table is also global standards. the next nice accreditation, Roy, that you're providing as part of this platform is the seamless knowledge capability. We have in the current cohort a lot of people who have been already in part of the IT industry, but they're wanting to upgrade into cybersecurity because they feel cybersecurity will provide their career a higher trajectory, and they can also shift and toggle across multiple borders. So that is a very interesting fact. The fact that you have perfected this across multiple countries. The cyber criminal doesn't differentiate whether he's targeting India or Japan or Korea or US or Canada. So your skills are as relevant in India as well as in any other country. So you can clearly, this course is standardized. You have very highly proficient professors from IIT Jodhpur who would be there as academic mentors during this journey. As long as, the thing that we always stress is that as long as it do not feel comfortable. What you learned yesterday is history. This is not the right field for you if you feel you have a certificate and that will provide you lifetime employment. This is not the right field for you, and that is the reason why 1 year of access is provided to Israeli labs. The fact is that the vectors are changing on a day-to-day basis. As long as you have that curiosity which is bugging you day in day out, I think that is what is important to learn from you, Roy. You've trained hundreds and thousands of people. What is the cybersecurity mindset? What really separates the men from the boys?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, because eventually, and I think we talk a lot, we talk a lot about that we come from like the hacker mindset, and the hacker mindset eventually is thinking more creatively. Sometimes when we think about how to defend, we only think about, okay, we have these systems, let's do the pen testing, test these systems, let's see if they are. But the hacker doesn't look at it like this. The hacker taking a step back, looking at the entire organization and saying, maybe we can get from the front door. Maybe we can use some social engineering to get in. Maybe we can find other ways of penetrating or finding vulnerabilities or developing vulnerabilities. So I think that the necessary mindset in cybersecurity is to be creative, is to be proactive, meaning not just wait and but defend forward, kind of like understand what the attackers are planning, integrate some aspects, and we are covering it in the bootcamp, of threat intelligence, understanding aspects of threat intelligence, understanding aspects of basics of malware analysis and ethical hacking. So I think the importance is to have a broader view of what cybersecurity is. Even if you're eventually going to be a SOC analyst in cybersecurity and you're not going to do actively threat intelligence or malware analysis or forensics, you need to have the broad understanding of what it is. And this is exactly the way we developed the bootcamp, is focusing about, of course, there are aspects that we dive much deeper in these aspects, but other aspects that we cover and they're not usually covered in basic programs, but we cover them, like threat intelligence, but we cover them because it's important for the right mindset. So that's what we are trying to do here, bring kind of like a more proactive, creative approach.
Yeah. Another fascinating aspect about this whole learning thing is, the next level of learning, training is really social learning. And you cannot just rely on one expert giving you every sort of information that is out there. It's too vast. The science is exploding all around. And what is fascinating is the social learning. There was one project we were doing with DRDO, which Roy is India's main defense research body. And they have a team of 15, because when large scale attacks happen on India, there is no single specialist. There is one guy who's an expert in cloud security, one guy on malware, someone on reverse engineering. So interesting is, during this whole journey, you'll have in any of you, everyone out here, when you are tackling challenges in your enterprise, you'll have 38 other friends on whom you can rely on at that point of hour. because he could bring in a different perspective to this whole thing. So there's enormous value in social learning. So there's learning that happens in the class, there's learning that happens off the class in our Discord platform. And I think that is again, Roy, is fascinating, because the communities of security people, because these guys, the large scale cyber attacks, the cyber criminals also are not operating alone. They're also working in large groups, diversified groups. So I'm sure you handle these situations elsewhere. In your experience, Roy, to grow up, some broad strokes. The final question to you is that to become really an expert in this field, to really become the alpha in this field, in cybersecurity, what are the tips you would give to these people who are starting on this journey?
Yeah. First, I think in every field, we need to understand, and we need some patience. We need to understand that eventually, although this program and this accelerated program will bring people to the level of expertise that they can actually practice and work in cybersecurity, it doesn't mean that they will become the world-renowned experts in 3 to 6 months. You know, it takes time, but it's part of the journey. And I say that the basic tips or the main tips is, one, and I think you mentioned that we can call it lifelong learning, in aspect that, this is a field that you need to keep learning. Not necessarily, doing courses and boot camps all the time. You can start with a boot camp, but then you will need to find the right platform for you, even if it's not something that will cost you money, but will just allow you to practice or to get access. So other than the fact that part of this program is to get more access to these labs for a certain period of time, I do see the importance of keep the training, never mind with whom or where. Keep the training, keep challenging yourself, keep reading, even if just, keep reading the main trends and acquiring the necessary skills. I think this is really important. And develop your enthusiasm and interest in the field, so you can kind of like be on top of things and understand what actually going on. I think that this is something important. In addition, I think that after the entry level position, then also it's important to understand and to understand with yourself, where are your main strengths? Are these in the protect and defend area of cybersecurity? Are you more analytical thinkers or forensics experts? Are you more? So right now we build the foundations to understand everything, but then you will need to develop your own path. What is your specific expertise within this career path? There are a lot of other things, but I think that's that's kind of like the 2 points.
Thanks. Lovely talking to you, Roy. Thanks for your time. We all love you in India. All the best for your new venture. Okay, we move to the next section. Thank you, Roy. These are the faculties and academic mentors who would be there during this journey of yours. These are all IIT Jodhpur Computer Science Department. Now, before we get to the rockstar in this group, all of them have domain expertise on specific areas of cybersecurity. It's a very vast field, and it is important you utilize the time that you have with each of them. Particularly, I'll highlight two people here. Professor Shomitra is an advisor to Indian Defense. He is a leading cryptography exponent in India. And what is fascinating in previous cohorts, people love studying under him. He is connected. He regularly advises industry on a lot of aspects. Then there is Professor Debashish Das, who works on IoT of vehicles. So majority of the classes would be taken by Professor Shomitra and Professor Debashish, and Dr. Ravi and different professors will come at different points of time. And the pedagogy is very simple. You'll have classes twice a week, 7 to 9 p.m. and please study, maintain this discipline. You have enough time to go through the theoretical aspects, use the class time effectively. People who really are performing well, please realize that we are keeping our eyes and ears open into this cohort. People who are really striving to go to the depths of this thing, we are either giving them options of joining us, and we are, again, as I've said, placement support is an integral part of WhizHack. People who are actively looking out, we also have a lot of sponsorships from enterprises. So there, we would try to take you to the next level, so that that you become domain experts in this field. The demand supply gap in this field can be judged. I'll just share one point with you guys. This fascinating aspect as we recruit, as we are trying to recruit technical experts in our team. It is strange that we are not finding people. The best people in India who are cyber experts are all entrepreneurs. They do not want to take up full-time functions. They all want to work with multiple organizations. So that is why this is such a fascinating career option. So please go through the depths of it. Use the classes judiciously. The notes are there. Coming back to Professor Shomitra, uh, as I said, he studied he did his BTech from IIT Delhi. Then he did his PhD in ISI, in Statistical Institute, again a very, very well known institute in India in cryptography, and very extremely energetic, high energetic classes. You really need to come. You need to be restricted to the topic that is being taught, but come back with fascinating challenges. Give complex challenges. He gives a lot of industry perspective. So these are not theoretical approaches. These are things that he has done because he's part of the industry. He advises Indian defense. So you get a lot of perspective. Over to you, Professor Shomitra. I hope you're there.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Kaushik, and welcome all these candidates for this boot camp. So let me begin by sharing my screen first, and probably, if required, I will also write something towards the end. Yeah. So hope you can see my screen.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Yeah. So, so welcome to the boot camp. It's already very well described by Roy and Kaushik, and with a very fantastic introduction by our director, Professor Shantanu. I'll briefly give you an idea of what we are going to do in this course. Maybe I should just make it full screen. Okay. So, cybersecurity is, you have already heard, is one of the fastest growing fields. And one of the reasons that the field has grown fast so quickly, especially in the last few years, is because our businesses and even social lives have moved online. So imagine in our childhood, most of us are now reasonably old people. In our childhood, we used to go and play with friends or in grounds, etc. But today you see our children or the younger generation, a lot of their time is spent on computers, mobiles, internet, and so on. So even I mean very less digitally literate people like our parents or uh, um, low educated housewives, even they are now onto things like say WhatsApp and money transfer and Google Pay and so on. So my sabji wala, for example, charges by using Google Pay. So this is the situation that the world has moved in. And in the last 1.5 years, the pandemic has actually made this even more pronounced. And the moment things have started going this far ahead, it has immediately led to issues of security, because not everything was designed with the aim that it is going to be attacked by people. So when people started, for example, an email, by definition, email did not have any security features. So email was only meant to be is for communication, sending messages here and there. Similarly, when computers were designed for the first time, there was no inbuilt security, inherent security in the structure. And this is by design, because that time nobody thought about somebody trying to attack these things. If you read the history of hacking, for example, you will be surprised to know what was the initial work that hackers used to do. The initial hackers actually were people who were more like gaming enthusiasts or music enthusiasts. So they will use the computers to create a digital music. So they will hack into the systems and do things like this. As Roy mentioned very recently, to keep your mind open and try to see how things can happen in real life. So give you another example. One of the earliest hacks happened in the US was on mobile telephony, the landline telephony systems in the US in the 60s, 70s kind of a thing. So the landline telephones were becoming very, very common that time. And there was a difference in the cost of the calls if you're making a local call in the city versus making a long distance call. Because the telecom companies, you needed bigger infrastructure for ensuring that your long distance call lands in the right place. They would charge more money. Now somebody figured out by hit and trial that the initial tone for a long distance call was different from the tone which was used for the short distance call. The numbers, etc., were not looked at by the system actually. So what could be done very easily by somebody is to try to simulate that kind of a tone. And by whistling properly, somebody could actually do it. Again, hit and trial process. But somebody could actually do it. And there was some chips kind of a packet which used to be sold those days, or some sweets, etc. in US. And it contained, it was meant for kids, like you have even today a lot of toys, etc., being sold with some chocolates and things like that. So this was a common chip packet which was being sold, and inside it was a whistle. And very surprisingly, the frequency of that whistle was actually matching with the frequency being used in this dial tone. And that allowed hackers to just use this appropriately to ensure that they would actually make long distance call, but the system will be fooled into believing that this was a local call, and they will pay less and they will actually use it more. So very, very interesting way the world has moved in cybersecurity, right from the beginning of these kind of initial hacking attempts to what we see today, where there are dedicated hackers probably making their lives only by this kind of hacks, by fooling people, by fooling systems, and so on. Roy mentioned a very big deal about the ransomware. In fact, it has become extremely popular today, and huge businesses are being attacked by ransomware. So as a part of this course, we will be teaching you a few things. And these few things will actually relate to the stages of how, as a security engineer, you are supposed to handle events in a business environment. The first thing that we will be covering will be how to protect yourself. So you need to learn tools which are typically used by security professionals to secure their businesses. So this will start from say tools which will monitor what kind of a data is going on your network. Are there likely attempts by a person trying to insert malware into your system? Are people trying to repeatedly try a particular login? So is brute forcing being attempted? So there are all these kind of things which are going to be done to protect yourself. These will also include things like good hackers. Those are the people whom the company hires to test their own systems and try to find out weaknesses. You can call them pen testers, and in some situations they could also be other people who are related to this kind of work. So their job is to ensure that you are protected from these external entities. However, nothing is 100% secure in the modern world. It is everything that we do or every product we buy has certain terms and conditions. In the same way, the products are also made with certain aim, and there are certain assumptions in them. So when we buy a mixer grinder, for example, we are believing that it is going to work at a certain voltage. And this is how we are going to use this in real life. However, nobody cares what will happen if this voltage is modified a little bit, or modified not just little but in a very interesting manner. And this is the kind of things which hackers will try to do. They are, is again, Roy and Kaushik mentioned in their discussion, very, very creative people. And these creative people will try to see, out of curiosity, what will happen if we change the voltage from 220 volts to, let's say, only 200 volts, or even lesser. Or what happens if we try to extend the upper scale of the voltage to something else. And then they will try even more funnier things, like what if they periodically change the voltage between 220, 230, 240, 220, 230, 240. There are infinite possibilities, and they will hit and try and try to do something. And it may so happen that in one of those situations, the hardware which is giving you this product starts to malfunction in a very predictable manner. You can now connect this idea to computers. So when you try to use, let's say, your CPU chip or your RAM, for example, let me talk about the RAM much more clearly. So you think that, let's say, you have all heard of things like encryption. So encryption is probably, you believe that it is going to protect your data. Now, how does encryption protect your data? There is an internal secret in the algorithm for encryption, and that internal secret has to be kept somewhere on your computer. Typically, it will be a hardware-based token, or it could be even a password or passphrase-based key. So you will be remembering it, you will be typing it on your keyboard, and some random data will be computed out of it, and that will be the secret key, which will be used for encryption. However, in the computer, it is somewhere. Typically, it is going to be stored inside RAM. RAM being a volatile memory, the moment you switch off your computer, the RAM contents will go away, and hence you believe that the data is not there. However, people who have studied the way data decays inside these RAMs, and this again from the 70s and 80s and so on. So it's not a today's idea. They have studied for long electronics people, and they found that the data does not decay the moment you switch off the electricity. So this idea was utilized by some researchers in security community, and what they did is they tried to enter into people's computer, and they took out the RAM by opening the system. They took a dump of the memory and then analyzed this at their free time. Slowly they developed tools, and within a few minutes they could recover the entire secret data, and that enabled them to decrypt the hard disk, even though it was using what we call as military grade cryptography in common parlance, or in more technical terms, a very strong cryptographic algorithm with a long secret key. So therefore, this is a simple example to tell you that it is never going to be possible that you will be able to ensure 100% security, and hence there will be attacks on your system, cannot be prevented. So when this happens, the second goal of security engineer will start, and that is, while an attack is happening, how do you handle? So this is the part of incident handling. In the incident handling, you will learn techniques to understand how to first of all confine the attack to only one side of your system so that the entire network may not be compromised. Secondly, when this attack is happening, what kind of precautions should you take, and how should you ensure that certain data is being captured? And why do you need this data being captured? Because after this attack has been handled, your business has again come back to normal. You will now need to investigate what led to this kind of an attack. And that is the third part of our job, and that is forensic investigation. In the forensic investigation, you will be analyzing logs from various kind of devices and trying to understand at how did the hacker or how did this malware enter into your system and what kind of activities did it do. Because knowing this problem is extremely important to take care of the incident for future. And these are going to be the three stages of not only the security job, but also the course that will be running. So we will be actually covering topics related to protecting yourself, we'll be covering topics related to handling the incidents, and we'll be covering topics related to the forensic investigation. So while I was talking about cyber crime of the kind of say ransomware, I should also mention here about cyber warfare. Now, this is a topic which Professor Shantanu Chaudhary already mentioned in the beginning of his talk. So he said, he actually gave some couple of wonderful examples. So one of the examples he gave was about destroying the bridges or destroying huge reservoirs of water. Now imagine that there is a sudden release of water from some place in a bridge. Immediately a lot of areas will be inundated. So Bhakhra Dam in Punjab, for example, the Himachal and Punjab region, in case it has to suddenly release the water for any reason, maybe there is a huge water flow coming in and they have to suddenly release lot of water. You can imagine what will happen to the country. Almost entire Punjab, Haryana and Delhi will be underwater. That is the kind of situation, and I personally saw this while I was head of department of computer science in IIT Jodhpur just an year ago. So about 1.5 years ago, it actually happened in IIT Jodhpur. There was a flood caused because of water being released from some upstream bridges, including some Bakhra Rangal and so on. So there was a small tributary passing by the IIT Jodhpur campus, and it could not withstand so much of water, and it entered into the campus by breaking a small wall. And once it entered in, the offices and the homes, etc., were flooded by 3-4 inches. Of course, it's a very, very large area, and the flood could actually be taken care of within 1 day. However, it did a lot of damage. So you can imagine now what can happen if somebody does it deliberately. And this is where the state level actors come into picture. If the state level actors get involved in causing manipulation of electricity grid or manipulation in the way the bridge control systems are being handled, because most of them are now handled electronically. It is not now based on certain levers. You can not only cause a huge problem of terrorism, it can actually affect for a very, very long time, and it can even destroy businesses. So most of you would have heard about the ship Titanic. And you may have some of you who are more careful about reading news or articles might even know that there was an oceanography professor called Robert Ballard, who was instrumental in finding out this ship. Okay, so how did they find this ship, by the way? Any idea? I mean, and in general, we will have classes with a lot of interaction. So if you want, you can happily talk to me while our discussion is going on. I'll be extremely happy to discuss. Okay. I hope the screen is still visible.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay. Great. Great. Yeah.
Yes,
So
it's visible.
great. Thanks. So now, can you tell me how did these people find Titanic very deep inside the ocean? And it is not that they were the only ones. There were people before them who tried to do and they did not find. The reason is that the bottom of the ocean is, first of all, too far away inside water. So normal ships or submarines cannot even enter because of the pressure of water being too high. And secondly, the visibility is so poor that even if there is something very close by, human eye will not be able to see. So typically people would go with sonars, some kind of devices, and use these devices to find out if there is some kind of a metal or some large object lying around, and so on. People tried it, but they did not succeed. And Professor Ballard succeeded in doing that. And how did he do it? And what was the story behind it? So if you read the history, you will find very surprising thing. He never went to find Titanic. Anybody knows what happened? Have you heard of this thing?
No, sir.
Okay. He was a naval officer of the US Army who had retired. And he had, of course, while being in Navy, he had got interested in this oceanography. Then he did his PhD, etc., became an expert in this and became a professor somewhere. But he was still doing secret work for the US government. The US government, he approached the US government once that I want to look for the wreck of Titanic. Please fund my voyage. You imagine how much funds are required to do this kind of exploration. You need a crew, you need a huge machinery, sonar, etc., and you need a special purpose vehicle to take you there. So some kind of a submarine which can withstand pressures and so on. It's not easy for normal people to have that much of money to waste, because it's a high likelihood even that you will fail. You will not find this. So he approached the US Navy with which he had worked earlier. And the US Navy refused to fund this travel. However, they were interested in something else. They had some nuclear submarines which had been destroyed in some war, or they had just been accident and they were lost in the Atlantic. The US Navy was interested in knowing what is the condition of those submarines. And they were willing to fund for this, but not for finding Titanic. But governments being governments, and especially the armed forces, they didn't want the public to know that they are looking for these nuclear submarines. So they gave the money to Professor Ballard and told him that in the public you will tell that you are searching for Titanic, but in reality you will be searching for these submarines, nuclear submarines. And if you succeed in finding them and you still have some time available from the period for which we are funding you, you can also search for Titanic. But that should not be your primary goal. And this is how he started the work. He was looking for the submarines, and interestingly, during that search, he found, okay, before even going that, so how do you even find a hidden ship inside the ocean? So the first idea will be, probably you will be looking for large parts of the ship which are likely to remain intact. So the hull of the ship, for example, is a very good idea, which you will try to find out. So what people before him were doing is primarily to look for the hull. But the ship may have broken into multiple parts. The hull itself may have been broken. It may have got rusted. It may be in buried very deep inside the ocean dust, etc. So it might be very, very hard. So this is why nobody was succeeding in finding Titanic. However, when he started searching for the nuclear submarines, he found that these some debris of some submarines were he could see. And that led him to think that if the debris are here, maybe I should simply follow the debris. Now, people before him were not trying to do that mostly, but he had this idea that if the debris are here, I'll just try to follow the trail of the debris. And that led him to both the submarines, which were very close by. And he could do this very, very quickly. And then he still had time left. So he started looking for the Titanic. So this simple example tells you what kind of a thing can be done by governments. Governments will not even tell what they are doing, but they will fund projects of this kind and get work done. Almost every country in the world has some kind of a cyber army with them, and this cyber army's job is to attack the systems of their enemies and secure the systems of ourselves. So this cyber warfare is very closely related to cyber crime. They are also in some sense cyber criminals, but they are doing it for the government and they are trying to do against the governments. So I just wanted to give you a big picture of the cyber security, to what extent cyber security can go. And it might be possible that some of you may have already worked in these kind of situations. I saw some army people involved in this cohort, so that's why I'm suggesting that. Or it is also possible that in future you will get a chance to do some kind of such things. Okay. However, again, my suggestion will be the first help should be search engine. The second help should be your peers, the other people who are working with you. This is how you will learn with each other. And this is what we have observed working tremendously well with the first group of people who took this cybersecurity certificate. They are absolutely enjoying this discussion on Discord, and they post all kind of interesting incidents happening and how people are solving them. They have troubles with some of these labs, and we always encourage them to discuss but not provide solutions. Because if just studying a problem and finding a solution from somebody was the aim, then you would not be here. You would be just watching a YouTube video. You will not be trying these problems on your own in these virtual machines. If that is the aim, and if your aim is to learn, then we strongly advise you not to seek answers from others, but to develop them on your own. And therefore, my recommendation will be that you are supposed to discuss techniques, but you are not supposed to tell the answer to a problem directly. Okay. So anything that you want to discuss now before we finish for the day?
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening, Ashish. Yes.
Sir, actually, yesterday I was reading an article which says the future of cybersecurity, and there it was mentioned that AI will be the future in cybersecurity domain.
Who is the author of that article?
It's from
If you
Economics Times, I think, sir.
Okay. No, because my student, Dr. Shweta Mishra, also wrote an article with the same title. So I thought maybe this is the one. But I think it is published on India Today TV news.
Okay.
Okay. But anyway, so now what happens about ML being ML entering in a big way in the industry today? So what has happened is, we have now huge amount of devices, and every device generating huge amount of data. It has become manually impossible to analyze data. So earlier the experts used to look at the logs and try to do things. Now it has become impossible. Okay. So if you have to find some needle in a haystack, you need automated techniques to do this. And this is where machine learning is actually coming very big way. So the forensic tools that you use, or even the network analysis tools that you see, most of them have started to have an ML component in them. But a security engineer is not supposed to be an expert in machine learning also. You are probably going to use them as tools. But if you want to develop those tools, and only those part of the modules where this kind of analysis is being done, then you need to know machine learning. But there is absolutely no doubt that machine learning has become an extremely important area. And very recently, you can go to the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technologies website. You will see that our government is actually trying to encourage security startups. So they started a scheme called Cybersecurity Grand Challenge. About 2 years ago, this was done. And the aim of this competition was that private industry, the startups who are registered as startups, they can participate and they have to showcase the abilities of their product. The government did a huge survey of various ministries and private sector, and they created a list of 7 or 8 problems. They said, are you going to solve problems within this domain? So one of the problems was, for example, hardware security. Another one was about self-healing networks. So if there is an attack, can you have an automated systems in which the network starts to heal itself without a very significant manual intervention? So this way, government created a large chunk of these classes of problems and then opened this to startups. A lot of startups applied. I was on the jury panel of these startups, and we actually interacted with these startups and looked at their implementations and their capabilities and so on. And finally, we gave our recommendations to the government. The government has to now make a decision how much to award these startups. However, the interesting thing I can tell is because I personally worked with so many startups in this process of last 2 years of judging these products, I saw that many of them have now started using ML in their techniques. So it is definitely true that machine learning is coming big way. However, it is not necessary as a user for you to know machine learning. And even within the tool, not every module is actually working on machine learning. A lot of tools are actually still traditional networks, secure systems, secure programming, and so on. Okay, I hope I answered.
Sir, last question.
Yes.
Can we expect that in future AI will take on these cybersecurity jobs?
That is where I mean we are always safe. ML systems can do many things, but ML systems cannot replace the creativity of the people. And this is where the security industry at least will always remain available, because hackers are always going to be creative. New devices will keep coming into market, new softwares will keep coming into market. Even the new version of the software immediately drastically changes the security parameter of the system. Just a single update to your system can do drastic changes. So security engineers will always be required, penetration testers will be always required, and because of the regulations, auditors will always be required. So ML cannot replace at least this particular job, or at least that is what I very strongly believe.
And so learning AI and ML will benefit in this domain in the future?
Not right now. I mean, also understand that you cannot become a master of everything. So you
Yes.
need to start with something and try to become slight expert in that area. Only when you think that okay, now I know reasonably well about this area, then you start to go deeper. Okay. So you do not try to become expert in two diverse areas all of a sudden. It is good to start with this. Even within this, now you will see there are huge number of challenges. So we will teach you network security, and we'll teach you incident handling, and we'll teach you forensics, and we'll also teach you cryptography. Now you cannot be an expert in everything, but if you have to be a security engineer, you need to know a little bit of everything, and then you will explore and find out in what way do I need to do.
Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Yeah, we will be meeting very regularly. After the first module by Dr. Debashish Das, my colleague at IIT Jodhpur, I'll be taking over, and then maybe I'll be with you for almost 1.5 to 2 months. And then other colleagues will come, and then again I will come at the end, and so on. So we have a schedule which we'll try to follow diligently, and we will also have these discussions during the classes. So it's always fun to discuss, and sometimes I will have to search for some things in case you ask and I'm not aware.